the last video, we have completed this journey and we are going to finally build the web front end so that we can play the ERC-20 Lotto. Let's make it happen. It's hard. It's hard to start a project, and it's very hard to get determined to complete the project. It happens to everyone, including myself. But you become persistent and you develop the habit of not quitting and building your skills as you go into an extensive trial and error. I am telling you, when you get to this point in the journey, when you are about to cross the finish line, I believe is the greatest feeling in the entire world. Because remember, we took a long journey in order for us to make this entire application happen. But the end goal is not to get to the finish line. The end goal is to learn as you go and progress into the finish line. If I were caring about just getting to the finish line, then what's the whole purpose of doing the entire race, the entire journey? Why am I going to be walking distances and distances if I am not going to be enjoying the scenery? I cannot just focus myself into the finish line. And that's when a lot of people quit. It's because they are just focusing in the finish line. They are focusing in the final product. And because they're not there yet, they quit. And that's the goal. The goal is to not quit, to enjoy the journey as you progress, okay? It's not easy. It's not easy. I know it's not easy, but it's not impossible. And it's better to grab every single winning in the path rather than focusing on the end goal or the final product. And that's my way of making any project or any vision or any challenge a success. It's to not quit and just go for it. Okay? And remember one thing, you don't fail unless you quit. If you quit, you are a failure. You have to continue going. Every single time that we fall, we have to just stand back up and continue the journey. Do not stop. Do not stop. So I am going to be building in this video and final video, we are going to finally build the web front end. And we are going to start playing the lotto. We're going to be buying tickets. We are going to be watching as the counter ends and the draw numbers are displayed in the front end. And if we were lucky, fingers crossed, we are going to claim the winning prize, okay? So the expectation is as every draw ends, we should see the results, the winning numbers, and we should have a button that allows any player that won the jackpot to claim the prizes, okay? So we're gonna do the entire front end and have full-blown functionality in the application. With that said, let's go ahead and let's finish the game. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So in the smart contract, we have to do one thing. And you remember in the video where we discussed the smart contract, we were passing the winning numbers manually because we wanted to modify the output so that we can play the winning numbers and we can confirm that we were getting the jackpot. But now we're definitely going to start playing, and we don't want to have that in the smart contract. We want to let the application obtain the numbers from chaining VRF and determine the winning numbers. So the only thing that I have to do, I'm going to zoom in real quick here. We are going to be removing the option to send the arguments into the function, and this will include the winning number array and the lotto ID, because we should be obtaining that from chaining VRF and we should be getting the information internally. We should not be passing this manually, okay? So to expedite, what I ended up doing was that I got in the Remix editor, I decided to go ahead and remove that. So I effectively remove count winners and the arguments that we had before. And instead, what I'm going to be doing, if you can see the previous smart contract, we were passing this value, which was the array that we were passing externally. Now we're not going to do that. Instead, what we are doing, check this out. We are going to be passing whatever we store in the smart contract as the winning numbers when we obtain that doing the draw number function. Okay, so if we go back up, draw numbers, this is where we effectively store those winning numbers after we do the math on it. Okay, so with that said, what we're doing now, we are just counting the winners, and internally we should be getting the information. We don't need to be passing anything external. Okay, cool. So this will be the final smart contract. Okay, so now let's go ahead and deploy it. So what I'm going to do, I already have the subscription ID, which is, I'm going to just zoom in real quick. Subscription ID right here, you can see it. And you also have the ERC-20 token. This is the end-to-the-R smart contract that we deployed, and we're going to be using to pay the jackpot and also to charge the ticket purchase. Okay, so we're going to deploy this. Okay, let me go ahead and pay it. And we got the transaction confirmed. Okay, awesome. So we have a smart contract address. As you know now, what I have to do, I have to go into the chaining VRF and add the subscription. And I have to add the consumer on the subscription. Okay, go ahead and add the consumer. We're waiting for confirmation. Now what we need to do, we have to work in the backend. We have to add 2 additional functions that the front end is going to need. And I'm going to discuss those functions now. Okay. Alrighty, so we are set. Also, we have to make sure, that we copy the smart contract because we have to modify the backend configuration. Okay. Alrighty, so here's the backend. What I'm going to do, I'm going to head to interfaces. First thing I'm going to do, I am going to replace that with the new smart contract that we have deployed. Okay. I'm going to Control S. One thing that I have to do, I'm going to explain. When we first initialize the Lotto, the smart contract, we are going to start opening draws. Here's the thing. In the execute Lotto function, what it's going to do is going to start by closing the Lotto. But guess what? We haven't even opened the Lotto. So what I'm going to be suggesting you, the first Lotto draw, open it manually and let the backend finish the function, else you're going to see a lot of errors because there's no such thing as a Lotto ID or like a draw ID, etc., because we haven't opened a Lotto draw. This is a brand new smart contract. Okay, so what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to go to Remix, and we are going to just open a draw. Okay, and we'll just run the backend, and then the backend should be able to close that and just continue the flow and get the numbers and whatnot. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and open the Lotto. And because I am using my deploy wallet or the owner wallet, I have no problems. Okay, cool. So I just opened a draw, and now we definitely have the current Lotto ID of 1. Perfect. Now let's build the functions that we need to build in the backend, and we can run the backend, and we know that it's just going to close the Lotto draw just fine. Okay, awesome. So that's just one time. After that, everything should just flow. Okay. All right. So this is the command line. Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and take the opportunity to zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so the first call that I have to add, it's going to be, okay, let me just go ahead and add this right below the getDrawJackpot. What we're going to be adding, it's the function to view the lottery. If we go to the smart contract, the view lottery will give us all the information regarding the particular draw ID. In this case, everything, the first ticket, last ticket, everything, okay? But from there, we have to obtain a lot of information because we have to obtain winning numbers. We have to obtain the number of tickets purchased and all that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it even simpler just by configuring a separate function to view lottery. If you are wondering where that function is, right? If we go back, this will be the view lottery right here, which is just going to ask for the draw ID, and in return is going to give us the struct with all the information. And from there, we can go ahead and parse and extract the information that we want and display that in the front end. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing that we have to also add is a view tickets, which means that I have to be able to determine if the ticket has a winning number. or you know, the ticket that was purchased has winning numbers. Okay, so that's how I'm going to be able to determine that. Okay, so we have to pass that so that the front end can talk to this function in the smart contract, right? So let's go back. Okay, so in this case, this is literally exactly as the other functions. Nothing changes. Obviously, the calls, the functions inside the smart contract will call, but the rest is the same. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste for sake of the tutorial to not go that long. But you already know what I'm doing. I'm doing the async function, then I'm calling, I'm storing it in the constant, and then from there we obtain the values that we need to obtain. Okay, and let's go ahead and add this. Remember, the first function that we have to do, we have to call, is going to be getLotteryInfo, which is going to get the view lottery, okay? That is a function that I show you in the smart contract that will literally get us all the information regarding a particular lotto, okay? Lotto draw, okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to grab this, right? And we have to make sure that we export that because we're going to use it in the API call or the API post interface that we are going to create, so then the front end can send the request over there. Okay, awesome. So this is it. Okay, and the next function that I'm going to be adding is to get the tickets, so we can determine if the user has winning numbers or not. Okay, so let me just paste this right below here, and you can see right here that we are calling view tickets. That is the function in the smart contract, and then we are passing the ticket ID. Okay, every time that we sell tickets, every ticket has a number, and that's where we specify, hey, give me the information regarding that ticket, so then I can determine if the numbers are winner numbers, okay? And as we know, we have to make sure that we pass this, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just pass this function right here, and we should be able to make the calls in the interface, or in this case, in the backend, right? So now let me go back into the backend. And now what I'm going to do, I am going to import those functions right here. So we're going to say getDrawJackpot. Oh, sorry, getLotteryInfo. That's the first one that we created. And the second, view tickets. Cool, awesome. So we have imported those functions. Remember, we created that in the interface. Now we're importing it in the backend. Now we have to do basically another interface for each one. So then I can pass the arguments and then we can get the information that we need, okay? And this will be the end of the backend config. That will be the last step. Another thing that we have to make sure that we provide, it's the ABI, because remember, we've removed the arguments that the count winners function was expecting. So now we don't need to send those arguments, but if we leave the old Lotto ABI, the front end is going to complain, or the backend is going to complain, thinking, hey, I need 2 arguments because that's what the Lotto ABI has, but we have to update that. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get into my compiler, and we already compiled it. I'm just going to copy the ABI right here, right? We're going to go back into the backend, and I am going to click the Lotto ABI. I'm going to Control A, Control V, and boom. Okay, so I selected all, replaced, done. So this is updated. And we have to make sure that this is saved, which it is. Okay, now we're ready to do the final thing here. Okay, so we are going to provide an interface so then we can get that view lottery information and we pass that back into the front end. What am I going to do with that? It's for me to obtain the winning numbers for every single draw so we can display them in the front end, okay? The post function that we are going to configure here is literally the same thing as far as the layout. Again, to save time, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste the new one. It's literally the same thing. The only difference is going to be the function that we are going to be invoking once we get that post request incoming from the front end, okay? So I'm going to say boom, and check this out. So now we are going to be configuring an interface in the front end that is going to be called view lotto, right? From there, we are going to be passing the request, which is going to be sent from the front end. The front end is going to send the lotto ID as the argument and pass that in the function. So the function that we just imported, remember, we configured that function in the interface. We're literally passing it onto this function right here, which we imported. And this is what's going to run. Basically, it's just going to land here, and we will obtain that from the smart contract. We're going to call the view lottery and lotto ID, and that's how we pass that into the front end. Okay, so we are going to be returning that information to the front end. Okay, beautiful. Everything else, like I told you, it's literally the same as the other calls. Okay, similar to the other one, literally the same. So the only difference that I'm passing is I'm going to be passing as the argument is going to be the ticket ID, which is going to be provided by the front end. The front end is going to send that information. It's going to land here, and then we're just going to pass that into the function, and off we go. Okay, beautiful. Control S. Now what I have to do, one last thing, we have to go back into Mongo database, because I believe the counter, it starts with, it's already started, so I have to remove or like reset it back to 0, so then everything starts all over. Okay, so let me go real quick into the Lotto tutorial, Lotto timer, and you can see that there's values here. We're just going to, change this to 0. Okay, so when we run the backend, it's going to say, oh, it finished. So it starts, closing the draw, doing everything. It starts all over again. Okay, beautiful. Okay, we are good to go. Awesome. So now we have to just confirm that we save all the configs, and that will be the backend. Literally, that's the backend config. It's done. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the backend. Node backend, and we made sure that we changed the smart contract to the new one, which should be good. Okay, let's see what will happen. Closing draw. Perfect. Awesome. So that's what we want. You can see we reset the counter, so it's 0. So the moment I rerun the counter or rerun the backend, it's just going to close the draw because it's 0. Okay, so now we should be good. Okay, we are going to leave this here, and it's just going to continue opening and closing draws. It's just gonna, do the whole process. We have left this backend to run every 5 minutes, right? So every 5 minutes, it's just going to keep opening and closing draws. Okay. So it's gonna give us, probably by the time we are ready to test, we are definitely going to see like a lot, like like 20 draws already or 30 draws. Okay, cool. We're done with the backend. Now it's time to build that front end. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new Next.js instance, and we will go from there. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new instance. npx create next app Lotto front, okay? And I am not going to use TypeScript. I am going to use ESLint. I don't want a source. I don't want to have the app directory. Import alias will you like configured. Default, that's fine. Okay, cool. So once we're done with this, we'll run it, we'll test it, and we'll go from there. And okay, so let's see if it works. npm run dev. Beautiful, that looks good. Awesome. So with that said, let me go back and let's give it a shot. Let's navigate 3000. We should get the prompt page. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay. Next thing that I have to do, I have to install all the dependencies. And for that, I am going to import the package.json, which has everything that we need to have installed. And we'll go from there. Let's make it simple. So what I have to do, it's just go and navigate into that project. So let me go open a new Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to open dependencies. Okay, cool deal. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and open and navigate to the new project folder. Beautiful. So we have the project, okay, and this is the package.json. So what I'm going to do, I am going to apply a little bit of dependencies right here. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna say this, and basically what I'm going to do, I am going to import the framework to the styling framework for React. In this case, for Next.js, NextUI. We're going to be using Axios. Canvas Confetti, that's like an animation thing that when you press the button or a button, it just throws confetti out. It's like very cool. And ethers, obviously. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to Control S, right? And we're going to go back, and we have to restart this. So we're going to do npm I. Now we should get that list of dependencies installed, and we should be good to go. Beautiful. Okay, so you can see we added the packages. Let's go ahead and rerun this. Okay, awesome. The next thing that I have to do, by default, NextUI will ask me to add the app and document folder into pages. So by default, NextUI requires me to update the app and document.js file in pages. So copy and paste again. This is front end. Okay, so we're going to import this. Beautiful. Control S. And we go to app, do the same thing. Okay, and Control S. Beautiful. Okay, one thing that I did. So what I ended up doing, I found a ball animation in CSS online, and I just use that as my template. And I am going to be importing this file in the styles folder, because that will be the style for the balls. Okay, so the Lotto balls, they're going to have a style and it will animate. So you are going to see the numbers just rotating as they're being shown, which is kind of cool. I just found that online and decided to put it there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the file. It's going to be called ball.css. New file, ball.css. Okay, and we're just going to paste this entire thing here. Okay, this is literally, if you want to know, if you want to look at how the balls are configured or balls are written, go ahead, be my guest. Okay, so this is done. We have all the dependencies that we need to have. Let's see. Yeah, now it looks like it's changing, which is fine. Okay, cool. Beautiful. Now let's start doing the following. One last thing that I have to add is the pictures. So the front end has some like art and pictures and cartoons. We are just going to add the pictures in the picture folder and off we go. Okay, I just added all the art, and you can see, let me show you. You know, this, I have like a cartoon, this other cartoon, all that is the background. And you saw in the beginning of the video, in the intro, you saw those characters. So that's basically the art. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so we're done with all the dependencies for the app. Now we have to work on the code. Okay, so what I have to do now, I am going to do a folder. It's going to be called components. Okay, and inside the components folder, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to create a file called config.js. This will host the ERC-20 token smart contract address and the Lotto smart contract address, which we will export because we're going to be using that in the interfaces. Okay, so the next file, speaking of that, is going to be Interfaces.js. Okay, and we need the ERC-20 token ABI smart contract and also the Lotto ABI, because we're also going to be interacting with the blockchain from the user perspective. When the user connects their wallet, they're going to make calls into the blockchain to buy tickets and such. Okay, all right, cool. So go ahead and create a new file. Let's call this ERC-20 ABI JSON. Okay, and let's make another file, which is going to be called Lotto ABI JSON. Okay, and let me go ahead and paste the ABIs for each smart contract. Control A, Control C. I'm going to Control V. This is the ERC-20 token ABI, and we are going to do the same with the Lotto. Beautiful. We are done with this. Okay, awesome. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I am going to export both the Lotto smart contract and the ERC-20 token smart contract addresses, because we're going to be using that in interfaces. Okay, so what I'm going to do, check this out. I'm going to export constant, and we're going to call this lottery contract. Okay, and we are going to paste the Lotto smart contract. Cool, this is the Lotto smart contract. Now we have to do the same thing with the ERC-20 token smart contract. We have to export that. Okay. Okie dokie, there you go. So that's the ERC-20 token smart contract, which, by the way, like I mentioned in the beginning, I already have that smart contract. We've been using that smart contract in the past videos. So I'm just going to use the same. I'm holding a lot of tokens in that smart contract. I'm not going to rug pull. No. Cool. Beautiful. So, okay, awesome. So we have exported. We're done in the config file. Now let's work on the interfaces, okay? Pay attention to this one. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to copy and paste here. We are going to be working with ethers. So I'm importing ethers, and I'm also importing the Axios, so then we can do the API calls. Okay, So for that said, I have to specify in every single API call the backend address, okay? In this case, the backend is running in the same machine. In my same machine, and you can see it right here, the backend is running right here. And you can see that we are already opening and closing draws. So this is looking very good. Okay, awesome. So the backend is running on my local machine, right? I could either just, type localhost and the port, which the port is going to be 8082, or I can just put the IP and that also works, okay? But make sure that you are pointing to the right backend address. So in this case, I'm just going to point to the local IP address. In this case, this is the IP of my machine. But again, like you can put localhost, but ideally you don't want to run this in the same server as the front end. You don't want to do that. No. Okay, beautiful. Now what I have to do, I am going to be calling the first function, okay? If you remember in the admin video, in the admin front end, it's the same thing, okay? In order for me to save time, I am going to be copying and pasting, because if I go and reteach the code or like re-explain the code, it's just gonna waste time. We already did this in the admin video, which was the last video, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I still will explain a little bit, but we're just going to go very fast because we want to focus in the front end functionality, okay? First things first, we have to get the draw timer. The draw timer is the counter, which we will read from the backend. The backend is going to give us that info, and we're just going to continue the counter in the front end, okay? We're not doing anything else. We're just literally calling the backend. The backend calls Mongo database. The Mongo database gets the data back to the backend, and the backend sends the data back into the front end. Nothing else, okay? And this is literally what we did in the last video. Next, I have to do the following. And this is very, we also work with this, but I have to explain to you. Remember in the first video when we discussed the bubble sort? So here's the thing. When someone buys a ticket, when a player buys a ticket, they will select the numbers randomly. We need to make sure that we send those numbers in order to the smart contract. Why? Because we don't want the smart contract to deal with that. We don't want the smart contract to be handling that function. Why don't we do that off chain and save a lot in gas fees? So what we're going to do instead, we are going to be doing the bubble sort in the front end. When the user selects the numbers, we're going to sort them in order. We're going to be sending those numbers into the blockchain in order of value, from small to, from the lowest to the highest. Okay, so we're going to do that. So then we don't have to deal with additional gas fees or transaction fees. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste the entire bubble sort array. Okay, which I also explained that. And again, every single call we are exporting because we're going to be using that in the index.js, which is the actual front end. Okay, beautiful. What I'm going to be doing here in sort array, when the user selects the numbers, we are passing that here. We're sorting them in order, and we're going to return that back in order. So then we can store that in the blockchain in order. Okay, cool. Now we are going to be calling the getDrawJackpot. This is going to give us the amount of tokens in the pool. It's going to give us the values of the tokens, or in this case, how many tokens are in the pool, in the jackpot pool, and we're going to be able to display that in the front end. This is literally that call, that function. Again, I already explained what is this doing. It's literally post, and we're just returning the response, and from there we'll get the values that we need. Okay. Now this one is going to be slightly different. Okay, check this out. GetLotteryInfo. Remember, we configure that new interface in the backend, view lotto. We are using this function to get all the information out of the struct in the smart contract. So from the smart contract, we are going to read the entire draw struct and get those values back into the front end so that we can do whatever we want to do. We want to show the numbers, the ticket numbers. We want to show how many tickets were sold, anything, all the information. This is where we are going to obtain this, okay? And we are going to be, creating the API request. It's going to be a post request, and we are going to be sending as the argument the Lotto ID, which if we go back into the backend, let me show you, this is what we configured, right? Go back to the backend, view Lotto. Remember what we're passing? The request is going to include the body. Body, it's a Lotto ID. If we go back into the front end, body Lotto ID. That's what we're passing. Okay, we're specifying in the headers that this is an application JSON format because we're actually stringifying the JSON output, sending that to the backend, and boom, getting the information that we need. Okay, response. We are going to then use this information so then we can call the URL, which is in this case the backend. Remember, we define the backend at the beginning globally. And yeah, and we're sending the options, the post, body, Lotto ID, whatever, and done. Okay, once we get the information back, we will get the output in return. Beautiful. Now we have to do the same thing with the tickets. View tickets. Okay, in this case, we are creating a function, getTicketInfo. We are going to be passing the ticket ID, and then we are going to use that to call view tickets. Basically the same thing as what we did with the view lotto, we're doing it with the tickets. Okay, we're sending the ticket ID, and if we go back to the backend, I'm going to show you back again, view tickets, and we are going to be passing that argument, the ticket ID, and we will run that function, which is in the interfaces. We go to the interfaces, then we call the smart contract and get that information out like it's 101. Okay, beautiful. Okay, cool, awesome. So we did this. Okay, we got that interface. Again, I'm going very quick because we already discussed this in the last video. Now we are going to obtain one more thing. One more thing out of the backend. We are going to obtain the current Lotto ID. Because with that, I can then run other functions. I can then pass the value that I obtain here to another function to get something else. Like, right, if I want to give me the winning numbers for draw number 5, then I am going to first call this function, get the draw ID, which in this case is 5, then pass that back and get the winning numbers by calling the view lottery. So I'm going to be passing the Lotto ID, and then I'm going to be passing the lottery info. But in this case, this is the current Lotto ID. This is the active Lotto running in the draw. Okay, so this is the active ID that is running. Give me the information for that. Okay, again, the same thing. I'm just going to pass this option, but in this case, I'm not passing anything as an argument. It's just a request to get some information out. Okay, and we're doing Axios response. We'll send response back. Okay, awesome. So we're just sending calls to the backend. That's all we're doing. Now, here's the fun part. Okay, remember, we are going to obtain the jackpot amount. But for that, I need to get the call, send to the backend, get those values raw, and then I need to obtain the output where in the smart contract, we have stored the amount in the jackpot. Okay, so check this out. I am going to be doing the following. I'm going to write this one. Export async function get lotto jackpot. Okay, let's call this pot. Okay, and let's start this function. This function, what it's going to do, number one, we are going to do result, which is going to be from await get draw jackpot. So this is where we are calling that function. Remember the first function that we invoke, or the interface? Let's go back up here. There you go. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be now creating a function that is going to first call the backend and invoke this particular call, right? We obtain whatever we get as far as the response from that call. So whatever is being passed back to us in the return, we're going to be using, oh, sorry, it's not back timer. It's going to be draw jackpot. Here it goes. So this response is what we are going to be storing in result. And now I can use that to do something else, okay? So what I'm going to do, I am going to be extracting the jackpot raw value. Don't worry, I'm going to show you where this information is on the smart contract. So jackpot raw, right? And we are going to then say it's result dot what? Dot data. Okay, data is the response in Axios. Every time that we use Axios, the return of that data from the call, it's going to have data. So the information, the details, anything that we are obtaining using Axios will be appended or will be added into data. So we have to call data, and from there, we should obtain whatever we want. Okay, in this case, the jackpot is in 4. Okay, array and position 4. Why is that? Okay, And if you paid attention in the last video, I explained that in the struct, every single position in the struct is going to be a number. We start with 0. 0 is going to be the status of the draw. Let me do a refresh, okay? This is why, I love you guys. This is why I'm doing this. I'm going back. Try to ask your teacher to repeat that and see how that goes. Okay, so we got the Lotto ID. Okay, so when we are sending that call and we're getting that information, in the array, we will obtain all these values, all the values from the array, but then we only need to have the first value. If we only need to have the first value, we're just going to call 0. Okay, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's why we're putting 4, because transfer jackpot is position number 4 in this array. And what I'm going to be obtaining, it's going to be that value that we're passing there. Okay, so if we go back into the front end, so we are calling data 4. If I were to place this to be 0, that means that I'm going to be obtaining the status. If we go back into the smart contract, 0 is the status. It's the first entry, right? We don't want that. We want to get the value of the jackpot, which is number 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, cool. Beautiful. Okay, so let's do 4. Awesome. But here's the thing. When we deal with ethers, we usually get those values in hex, right? So we have to convert that value into ethers, or in this case, as an integer. Okay. So what I need to do, the first thing I'm going to be doing, I am going to create a empty array, because we have to store whatever we obtain from here. And you're going to understand why I'm doing this. Okay. I am going to now, by the way, constant, it's going to be I cannot modify this when I define let. That means that I can rewrite into that variable. If I need to modify something, I can rewrite, okay? So let, and I'm going to say jackpot raw, okay? We are now going to define, using the ethers utils, we are going to be converting this into ethers, or in this case, as an integer, so that we can see the numbers. Okay, so we're going to say ethers utils. This is how we invoke, and we're going to say format ether. Okay, what are we passing as an argument? Jackpot raw. Okay, beautiful. So now this value should give us the amount of tokens in the jackpot pool. Okay, this is the prize pool. Okay, now here's the thing. It usually includes a decimal and dot 0 something. We don't want to show that. We only want to show what is, an integer. We don't want to show decimals. So in this case, I have to send the let, and I got to tell jackpot. Let's call this jackpot, and this is where we are going to get the final value. Okay. We're going to now call jackpot raw, which was what we previously configured, and we are going to say split. By the way, split is how you eliminate those a particular section in that value. And we are going to say anything that is 0, and after, strip it out, take it out, split it out, okay? And this is basically converting, removing all the decimal points, the point and the places in this particular value. And now I am going to be passing this as an array. So what I'm going to say total push. What am I going to push inside that array? We're going to pass jackpot, okay? What am I going to be returning to the front end? Total, because we already stored whatever we wanted to store in this empty array. We populated that array with the values of jackpot, and we send that back into total, okay? Now, here's the thing. I am going to be building another function that what's going to do, it's going to facilitate this conversion. And I show you how to do this for a particular function, but I can then do the following. I can then create a function, because I am going to be converting a lot of values, not just the Lotto jackpot, but also the numbers and whatnot. And we don't want to show decimals in the numbers, okay? So I have to do the same thing. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to do it very quick. And by the way, you can see it right here. I am going to be creating format data, okay? So I'm going to say export async function format output, okay? And then we're going to be passing the values, okay? This is what we're going to be using to send information inside here, and then we should obtain the information converted into integer. So guess what? What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say, I'm going to copy this, and we can use this across the board, right? So I can do this. I can say raw number, right? Then I can say number. And what I'm going to be passing is what? Data, right? So this is what I'm going to be passing into this formula. And then I'm going to say right here, raw number, right? And what am I going to be returning? Number. So if I do this, right? If I do this, let me just grab this on a cut it. I'm going to send it up top. Now I can effectively use this in all my calls. So I don't have to be converting every time that I need to convert. Instead, I'm just going to send this to this function that I did. So then it allows me to make the code cleaner, okay? So with that said, let's practice what we preach. So what I'm going to do instead now, remember, I am going to be passing this raw value, right? So what I have to send to total, it's going to be jackpot, okay? So with that said, I am going to say this. I'm going to say await format output. We're calling the function that I just created, and we're just going to pass jackpot raw again. And again, this is locally significant. This argument right here, this is local to here. It's not that I have to label this to be data here. I can just pass anything, okay? And then now, jackpot raw is already converted. As a matter of fact, I can do this. Sorry, let me just do this. As a matter of fact, I just need this because I will be taking care of all that, okay? See? So see the difference? Now I have this clean because I'm going to be passing this here. We'll get the number, integer cleaned, and then we'll get that here, and then we'll just store this, and off we go, okay? Beautiful. Now we have this ready to go. And now I have to provide all the numbers in every single draw. So I have to provide all the winning numbers for every single draw in the front end. So as we see all the draw IDs, we're going to see all the 6 numbers for every draw displayed in the front end, okay? So with that said, I am going to create a function. This function is going to be called getWinningNumbers, and we are going to be passing the Lotto ID because this is going to do is going to extract the values. It's going to make the calls, calling those interfaces, and it's going to extract the values, and we're going to be able to store or extract every single number and display that in every single ball, okay? So that's what we're doing. So for that, I'm going to do it very quick. I am going to just copy, and we're just going to create individual arrays. Winner number 1, winner 2, winner 3. So those are all empty arrays, and every single empty array, I'm going to be storing every single number. Again, there's other ways to do it. I decided to go this way, okay? Check this out. I am going to be calling getLotteryInfo, Lotto ID. If we go back up, let's find that function right here, getLotteryInfo. You can see now we're effectively view Lotto. From there, we are going to obtain a bunch of data, right? This entire data set is just going to be stored in result. Then from result, I can go ahead and get what I need. This is going to be very fun. Check this out. Now, what I'm going to do, remember result, and remember that we, in the last function, we got the jackpot number, and that was data 4. Now we are going to be from result, right? This is going to be a different array. This is not the same, okay? So in this case, this is going to be 6 and 0, okay? Let me show you in the smart contract. What this is doing, inside the struct, we have another array. So what we are getting then is going to be a nested array. We are going to get an array that includes all the information, from, the status, the first ticket, last ticket, everything. We obtain the jackpot from there. But now we're doing the same thing. But in this case, we have to also extract information from an array that is inside that array. So it's a nested array. So if I go back and I show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, instead of the status, what viewLottery is doing, if I go back into the function, right? ViewLottery, what it's going to do, it's going to provide to us, it's going to return to us all the entries inside a particular struct. Because we have a mapping, the mapping is lotteries, and we need to pass the lottery ID. It's going to give us the struct for that particular data location. And it's going to give us all the information for that particular struct. In this case, the struct ID is the draw ID, okay? So if I go up, right, the status, this is just a status. What we're actually looking for, it's going to be the position in the call. In this case, we are going to be obtaining all these values out of the struct. That's why we're calling the mapping straight. We're not calling the getLotteryInfo as we did before. We're calling the struct and we're getting the information from the struct. And we said in the code that the information that we're trying to get is 6, okay? What is 6? Let's take a look at the smart contract. It's going to be 0. We said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's going to be winning numbers. Winning numbers is also an array, which means now that I landed here, I landed in number 6. Now I have to obtain the first number, and we know that we have 6 numbers in total. Remember, in an array, we always start with 0. So it's 6 numbers, but it's going to be from 0 to 5. Because 0, it's a number in the array, okay? So that's why if we go back here, let me go back into the front-end code, right? We're getting to position 6 where that array is, and then we're getting the first value, in this case, the first number. And this would be raw number 1, okay? Now what we need to do, remember when we did that function that will allow us to format the output and convert that to an integer? We're gonna be using that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to show you right now. Okay. Now, number 1, right? It's going to be passing whatever we obtain from that call, send it to format output, and finally we will get the number. Okay. Finally, so then we can pass the values into the front end, into HTML. Now I have to push that into winner1. You see what I did? See what I did? We get the lotto info. From there, we get a result. And then from there, we get the number, and off we go, right? So what we need to do, we got to say winner1 push. What am I going to be pushing? Number 1. That's it. How do we do the other numbers? Well, guess what? There's a reason why we have copy and paste. Now we have everything here. We just have to continue doing it for the other numbers. So I'm going to copy this, right? I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Row number 1, 0, 1. Okay. Now we pushed, we store that in number 1. Let's go to 2. It's going to be number 2, 2, and it's going to be 1. Okay. Yeah. So number 2. Okay. Okay. And we finished with number 1. Now let's go to number 2. Now number 2, guess what the position is now? 1. Remember, 0 is the first. The second is going to be 1. This is 2, and this is 2, and this is 2, and this is 2. Beautiful. Let's continue. 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, and 3. Beautiful. Continue. 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, and 4. Continue. 5, 4, 5, 5, 5, and 5. Beautiful. And last number. 6, 5, 6, 6, 6, and 6. There you go. Okay, so now we should be able to obtain all the winning numbers. Every time that we pass a lotto ID, the draw ID is just going to return the winning numbers. Okay, beautiful. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I am going to be returning that to the front end because we're exporting this function. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to return every single value individually, right? So I'm just going to store this in braces, return winner 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we are just going to close this in. Beautiful. So we have the get lottery numbers, and this can be called to get every single draw. Okay, we're just going to pass the lotto ID, and it's just going to give us the winning numbers for that lotto ID. One last function here, and we should be good to go to the front end. Okay, so now I am going to be doing a very similar function. This time I am going to be exporting the winning numbers along with the lotto ID. Okay. And I could be doing the same thing here, okay? There's another way to do this, and the reason why I ended up doing this way is for you to see that you have many ways to do this, okay? Let me show you this one. I am going to do the following. I'm going to be exporting async function, okay? And it's going to be getWinnerNumbers, okay? And it's going to still call this other function, but we are going to be storing the entire output into the array. We are going to be combining every single number into a particular array. So in this case, instead of me returning the values individually, we are going to be returning the entire array, okay? And you are going to see why I'm doing this in the next section. And I could do this in the same function, but again, I want to show you how we can play with the returns in functions and leverage another function to do an additional task. Okay, so let me show you real quick. Now, what I'm going to do, I am going to be invoking this function and obtaining the return. So I should be returning this in here. So I'm importing whatever I obtain from here into here, okay? So when I say constant result, I'm just gonna say result. And now we are going to be awaiting the get winning numbers, okay? So this function right here, okay? And we are going to be passing what? The lotto ID, because it's an argument that is expected, okay? The difference is that I have to also do it here, okay? And you're gonna see why I'm doing this. Now what I have to do, I am going to be creating an array, okay? But check this out. Okay, and let me open the array. Now what I'm going to be storing inside this array is going to be the result, okay? So let me just scroll all the way here. I can even remove this, okay? Check this out. Result dot winner1, comma, result, this is cool. Winner2, comma, result winner3, comma, and so forth until we get to the end. So I can literally take the opportunity to copy and paste. Okay, now we're gonna say 4, 5, and 6, okay? What I'm going to be exporting or returning, I am going to be returning two things. The array, right? And the lotto ID. You're gonna say, why are you doing this? You're gonna see it, okay? We are done with the interfaces, okay? I forgot one other interface that we have to work with, but this is going to be separate. This interface is going to be the Web3 calls. This is calls being done by the MetaMask browser wallet, or in this case, the user wallet, to buy tickets and to claim if they win the jackpot, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I am going to create another file. I forgot about this one. It's gonna be called Web3 functions, and we will code those functions here. It's not gonna take me that long, okay? So let's go here, and I'm gonna call this Web3 functions.js, okay? And I am going to do the following, okay? So we have to install the Web3 model, okay? So one library that I have to interact with, it's the Web3 model. And the reason why is because it allows me to do that connectivity with MetaMask, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to go over the front end. I'm gonna Control S, Control C, and npm I Web3 model. Now I am effectively running this back. Cool. Okay, so we are importing Web3 model. Now I have to import ethers. We're going to be using ethers.js, and I have to import the ABIs. Remember, those are my ERC-20 ABI because I have to interact with the token smart contract, and I also have to interact with the Lotto ABI. So that means that I have to import both. Okay, so let me just go here. I'm going to copy and paste, and now I can effectively build my contract interaction using the APIs. Okay, and finally, I am going to be importing the smart contract addresses. This is going to be the lottery smart contract that we configure in code in config.js, and I'm going to be importing the ERC-20 token smart contract as well. Cool. Now with that, I am going to import, I think, 3 additional interfaces. Those interfaces are the ones that we configure here. I'm going to show you what they are. Copy and pasting because I want to make sure that we expedite. Okay. Okay. Let me just enter. Beautiful. Okay. Awesome. And now, yeah, it should be good. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to be doing here, it's going to be a function that allows the user to connect their wallet and pay for the tickets, okay, to buy tickets. So with that said, I have to call the Web3 model library, but what I'm going to do, I am going to be creating an export function because we have to attach the button. This is the button that we need to use to connect the wallet and so the user can make the purchase, okay? Async function is going to be ethConnect, and we're going to say the following. First thing I'm going to do, and on my tutorials I've done this, so basically I am invoking Web3 model, and then I am creating this constant, and then we're going to do connection, then we are just going to open that connection to the MetaMask wallet. This is when effectively the MetaMask will open in prompts for connecting, connect to the website. Then I am going to specify my provider, which is going to be whatever the wallet is connected to. Okay, so in this case, I'm passing connection, and this will be basically Ethers providers, Web3 providers, and that's how I'm making the call. Now I need to sign transactions, which means that I have to obtain the signer. The signer will be provided when we connect the MetaMask wallet. Those values will be obtained there. Okay, and now we are going to make the constants to interact with the smart contracts. Okay, so this will be the Lotto contract constant that basically what it does, it calls the Lotto smart contract. And I will be interacting to that smart contract as the signer. Okay, in this case, the wallet that is connected to the application. And same goes with the token smart contract. Okay, those are the constants. And now I am going to be returning that. And we can use effectively this particular function to do anything we want as far as the Web3 calls. Okay, this is the Web3 portion of it. Now I am going to make the function to buy tickets. Check this out. Okay, we're going to say the following. We're going to say export async function, and we're going to call this buy tickets. Okay, so we are going to be passing the ticket array. And you are going to see when I configure the index, I am going to build that model. It's going to be a model that is going to pop up and it's going to ask the user to get the, to select the numbers and buy. When the user hits buy, I am going to be passing the numbers inside here, inside ticket array, and then I can use that to, send the call to the blockchain. Okay. Now I am going to obtain the smart contracts, and I am going to obtain all the information from here so that I can do the purchase. I can buy those tickets. Okay. So with that, I have to then store the ethConnect into output. So whatever we obtain here, it's basically get here. We are going to fetch this in output. Then we can go ahead and call those individually. And we will call the Lotto smart contract and the ERC-20 token smart contract. Okay. Now we have to check this out. This is very important. Okay. So we have to know what the price of the ticket is. And we define that in the smart contract. What I'm going to be doing, I am going to be calling the Lotto smart contract. Hey, give me the ticket price. There is a public variable that was configured in the contract with the ticket price, and we can call that natively. Okay, and then we are going to store the transactions. And say transaction 1. We are effectively making the first call. This call, it's not going to be to the Lotto smart contract. It's going to be to the ERC-20 token smart contract because we need to first approve the Lotto smart contract from transferring those ERC-20 tokens to buy the Lotto tickets. Remember, every single custom ERC-20 token needs to be pre-approved. So then any other smart contract that wants to ingest those tokens, wants to use those tokens and needs to transfer the tokens from your wallet, we need to pre-approve that. So the first transaction that the user is going to see is going to be the approve, the token transfer. Okay. The user approves the token transfer and effectively approves the buy tickets function, okay? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to await when we get confirmation from that, okay? So what I'm going to do, I am going to get this constant, and I'm going to say await tx1 wait. This is basically a way for me to expect the response here. And then once we get the response, then we can use this to make a decision, to make an action or trigger something, right? This is how I am able to hold the process, okay, until I get the confirmation that we obtain the approval, then go ahead and tell the front end, hey, send the request to the backend. So then to send the request to the blockchain to get the ticket numbers, okay? Now what I'm going to do, I am going to say receive one, right? And the receive one is basically going to specify if there's something here, which means that you already stored, data here. That means that we already got the call, we got the transaction. Okay, awesome. Now let's continue. Now we are effectively buying the tickets. So we are going to invoke the Lotto smart contract, buy tickets, and we are going to be passing the array of the tickets, of the numbers that the user has selected. Okay, so this is going to be passed here from the index page. Okay, now we're going to say constant receipt. We're going to do a very similar wait here, but in this case, it's going to be the second receipt. Beautiful. It's going to be here, right? And what am I going to do? I'm going to say if receipt2, meaning that if you finish, processing this and you obtain a value inside receipt2, then do this. Okay, that's all we're doing. And what I'm going to say, I am going to say, very simple. I am going to get the Lotto ID. Then I am going to get the result, for Lotto ID. And from there, we are going to obtain the last number. What we want to do, we want to show the user, this is your ticket number. Transaction completed, this is your ticket number. Okay, so this is what we're going to show to the end user. And then we have to specify the else. So we have to if. We have the first if and the second if, then we have to close all that, and we should be done with this. Okay, we are left with closing the function. Okay, we're going to close the function right here. Beautiful. We are good to go. So you can see we are just first approving the transaction. We get approval. Now let's go ahead and buy the tickets. We pass the numbers. We expect the response from those from the smart contract. Then from there, we just tell the end user, hey, transaction completed. This is your ticket number. And we are just going to provide the ticket ID to the end user. So the end user knows what ticket ID is. Okay. Okay, and we are going to be configuring one last function, and this will be a Web3 function. This is to claim the prize. Okay, if the user got the winning numbers, they can click the claim button that will be attached to this function that we're going to be configuring. And this function is going to check if the user has the winning numbers, the wallet is associated to it, and if it is, pay. Okay, and again, what we're doing is we are going to do a claim. We're going to say claim price, and we're going to be passing the Lotto ID. So what happens is the front end is going to send the Lotto ID. When we hit claim, that claim button is attached to a draw ID. So every single draw ID is going to have a claim button. Okay, that claim button for that draw ID is associated. There's a Lotto ID for that. What we're doing is we're passing that here. So in case someone pushes that button, the button for draw 5 is going to pass into claim prize 5. This will be the draw ID 5, okay? And obviously we're gonna be using that ethConnect because we have to first connect the wallet. So we have to be doing the interaction with the wallet, okay? We expect the output, but in this case, I am only going to be importing the Lotto smart contract. I don't need to deal with the ERC-20 because I don't need to send approval for that. And now we're just gonna call the function to claim, okay? So remember, in the smart contract, we have a claim price function, right? If we go back to the Lotto smart contract, let me show you real quick. Let's scroll down here. Claim price, okay? And what is expected? The Lotto ID. So we are effectively calling this function, and we are going to be passing the Lotto ID. It's just going to check every single requirement, and then it's going to check if the winner matches the wallet, okay? So you can see here, winners, if the winner, right, it's stored because when we count winners, when we ran the count winners function, which is this one right here, we stored the wallet address with a number 1, right? Remember, we stored the wallet with number 1 at 1, right? Now I'm going to check if the wallet stored in this struct right here, it's matching 1. That means that it's claimable, that that wallet has a prize, has won the jackpot. Else it's not payable. Okay, so we're checking that. If it's equal to 1, then go ahead and pay. You know, we're just going to say obtain the winner count, right? Because let's say we have multiple winners, we have to obtain how many winners were in that jackpot. And then we'll get the payout, and we're going to divide the total payout. This will be the total jackpot amongst all the winners. So then we can pay to that particular wallet that just called this function his his percentage, or the percentage that he won or she won based on the amount of winners, right? And then at the end, we have to make sure that we change this back to 0, or else the user can claim again, right? Because it's going to match 1, right? So we have to make sure that we reset this back to 0, okay? Beautiful. Let me go back. And now what I'm doing is effectively that claimPrize, LottoId. Let's say we catch an error. Catch an error means that it was not able to complete. We can assume that it's not payable, that the user didn't win. That wallet has no jackpot, okay? It's not won any jackpot. The tickets are not payable, okay? What I have to do is I am going to say, right, if your transaction, it's not returning, right? This we're negating, right? We are negating, it's not returning, not payable, meaning that you're not, giving me back not payable, then that means that it's paid. That means that the user won. Else, you're not lucky. Earn any prize, and I'm going to just tell you, hey, sorry, you didn't win, okay? And we're just going to close this, okay? Control S. Alrighty. Now we have done the entire Web3 functions. Those are functions that the user will do by connecting the wallet. Now let's do the final piece, which is the index, and we're done, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and do the last one. The last one is going to be the index.js. So let's build the index.js and let's test this application. We're done here. What I'm going to do first, this is the default Next.js page, or the index.js default splash page that we obtain when we load Next.js. So I have to delete everything out of here. So let me go ahead and just grab all this, and we are taking it out. Okay. So I am going to start by importing the dependencies that we are going to be using, so then we can render HTML and get the information, and then we can play the lotto. I am going to be working with useEffect and useState. Those are React hooks. We have to be working with those hooks. We're going to be passing information to the HTML code. Once we do the render, once we execute those functions, we have to be passing that information. useEffect, it's going to allow us to load certain functions during render. The moment we load the page, we're going to be executing some functions, and we have to use useEffect for that purpose, okay? Next thing I'm going to be importing, it's all the objects in the web front end, right? So in this case, in the NextUI Styler, I am going to be importing the grid because that allows me to do the centralization of every single HTML component using this particular library. So we're going to be using the grid. We're going to be using card, text, column, container, space, button, row, model. Very important. So for model, we want to display the buyTicket section in a separate window. What's going to happen is the moment we hit the buy button, a load model page is just going to pop up, and it's going to provide a dial pad. Basically, it's a user input window that is going to allow the user to select their lottery numbers and buy the ticket. Okay, so we are going to be using that. Also, we are going to be importing the confetti, which is the animation that we are going to be applying to that buy button. You're going to see this. It's very straightforward. As a matter of fact, I am going to go over the HTML very quick because my idea is to test the functions. That's what we want to see, what's going to happen, okay? So I am going to be importing confetti, right? So with confetti, okay, so I just imported confetti. Now I am going to be importing all the functions that we can configured in the Interfaces.js and the Web3 functions as well. So I am going to be bringing those functions into index so then we can start interacting with it, okay? I'm going to be importing interfaces, and next, I'm going to be importing the Web3 functions. And with that, we have all the inputs that we need, right? This should be good. Now I have to do the following. I am going to initialize index by creating the function, the for default function of lottery. That will be the name. Default function lottery, okay? All right, so here's how we are going to do this. I am going to import all the HTML code, and then we will build the functions, and then I'm going to show you the references in the HTML code. We will load the site, and we will call this a total success, okay? So I need to count every time that a user hits one button in that buy lottery section in the model. Every time that the user clicks a number, I need to be counting those numbers, okay? Because I need to determine if there is more than 0 numbers, okay? I need to determine if the user selected more than X amount of numbers, so that we can allow the user to execute the buy ticket function, the actual purchase, right? We don't want to be sending less than 6 numbers because the call is just going to fail, right? We have to protect the application and also the user from not experiencing, an error in the page, or the buyer losing funds because they did a transaction, but there was not enough numbers, so it failed, but still got charged with gas fees because we still have to approve the transaction first. You see where I'm going? So for that, I have to stop the function from executing if there's less than 6 numbers selected. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to declare a global variable called digit count, okay? And this variable, it's going to initialize in 0. And what we're going to do, we're going to increment that value all the way to 6. If we have 6 in this value, we can allow the function to execute. And you're going to see this, okay? So don't worry, I am going to be configuring that outside of the function. This is just going to be something global that we can use as a counter, okay? Beautiful. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to be doing is I am going to be configuring all the use states. I'm going to do everything in top to bottom because if I go one by one, it's literally very similar to what we did in the interfaces. I just want to expedite this, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain to you what each use state it's going to do. Okay, check this out. Okay, so when we have the first use state, it's basically the use model. This is related to NextUI. This is how the model is just going to pop up. And this is the toggle, right? Either set visible and binding. This is literally web front end, so I'm not going to go too much in details on that. But basically, that's how NextUI implements the model, okay? Now, this particular function, it's going to allow me to list every single lottery draw number on screen. So it's going to let me display X amount of draws that we had in the lotto. And you can be selective. You can say, I want to just display the last 6. So let's say you want to allow the user to claim all the way to a week in draws, right? So if we have 24 hours, then we'll have 6 or 7 draws. And that means it's 1 full week. So I am going to be specifying the value here, and then I am going to be able to display all the winning numbers for each draw. Okay, so you're going to see that. And this is basically use state to show each individual number because we want to show that number in the actual CSS object so that we can display everything very cool. And you're going to see this in the front end. Okay, get ticket number. Basically, it's going to obtain the moment the user hits the claim button. I need to obtain that information on the back. I'm going to be storing that, and I'm going to be passing that to the claim function so then we can determine if the user won the lotto or not. Okay, getJackpot is going to allow me to display what's the current jackpot amount in the prize pool. And we're going to be displaying that on the top. And finally, getLotto. With getLotto, I am going to obtain the Lotto ID, and then from there I can use that to pass other values or make other calls. Okay, now that I have the Lotto ID, execute gave me all the information regarding this Lotto ID or make certain calls. Okay, cool. And this is just going to be used on the functions that I'm going to be configuring right now. And one that I'm not going to go too much on it is the confetti. We're just going to be applying this to the button, so don't worry. So now I am going to be configuring a use effect, okay? This use effect, what's going to happen, it's the moment the user loads the page, all those functions are going to be triggered. All those functions are going to be called. The functions we're going to be configuring each one now. So what I want to do is I want to execute those functions so that we render and display all the values in the front end. This will include the ticket numbers. It's going to include, the winnings, the prize pool, and it's going to include the draw IDs, everything. Okay, and you're going to see because we're going to be configuring that right now. This one, I don't have to go in detail because you already went through this during the admin front end. This is basically the countdown. We're going to do the counter and just going to draw. It's going to make the call to the backend. It's going to obtain the values. It's just going to show the same counter that the backend has. Okay, very straightforward. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to. Here, this function, I'm going to go over it very briefly, but I want to make sure that I can explain to you what's going on here. This is wild, okay? We're going to create a function called addDigits, okay? Every time that a user hits a number, that state, that value is going to be passed here, okay? And what we're going to do, if digit count, okay, is less than 6, then I want you to store that inside this particular use state. So we mentioned the getTicketInfo, right? It's going to obtain the number that the user selected when they want to buy the tickets, right? This state, what I'm actually doing here, it's that I am telling Next.js, or I'm basically telling that it's incomplete or it can be updated, meaning that I'm going to tell the state that just keep adding to it. It's not going to replace, but it's just going to update. You see what I'm going? I am going to be updating the values with additional items, which means that this right here, it's telling this getTicketNumber, this is going to be an array that is going to keep increasing. Okay, it's basically, hey, I just got one number. Okay, let me throw it in the ticket number, but then I'm going to continue adding more values. That is what we're doing, okay? And then this is what is actually being passed on to ticket number, okay? This value right here, it's what we are then declaring right here, ticket number. So that's how we are going to be able to pass that. And this is going to be the final value that we will send to the blockchain to buy the ticket. Those will be your numbers, and we will send those numbers to the smart contract, okay? Beautiful. What we are going to do with that, we are going to invoke, this is HTML, right? So the moment I click a button, I want to show the button. I want to show the number that the user selected in the front end so the user knows that that's the number that they selected, okay? And if the user wants to remove that, we are going to have another function to remove, okay? And basically what this is going to do is just going to provide the information to HTML, and HTML should be able to render that on screen, okay? And this is literally me appending the shall object, which is the number, and you're going to see it, to the parent, which is the division inside the model that is going to display that number. As the user is clicking the numbers, we're going to be able to show each number as the user is clicking it, which is it's very cool. It's very useful, okay? And we are going to keep increasing the counter. Remember when we initialize this counter right here with 0, the moment the user hits the button, we're just going to keep increasing that until we get all the way to 6. If we reach 6, I'm not going to let the user hit any more numbers. That's why digit count has to be less than 6, okay? Which means that the moment it hits 6, that's it. That's the last one. I'm not going to let you continue, okay? Beautiful. And you might say, well, 6, but those are 6 numbers. It's not going to be able to select the 6 numbers. I'm like, the first number, what's the first number? 0. So that means it's 0 all the way to 5. Okay, so if it got to 6, that means that it already passed. Okay, so 0 is an actual number. So it starts from 0 and it goes all the way to 5. Cool, beautiful. And with that said, I am going to add now the function to do the opposite. What it's going to do, if digit count it's higher than 0, meaning that there's already data passed, which means that we already incremented this. That means that the user clicked something, I added numbers. Then we are just going to get from ticket number. We're going to pop and we are going to pass the last value. So you can see pop, what it does, it removes the last element from the array. So as the user hit the button and selected the numbers, if we add pop to this value right here, to this use state, we are effectively removing the last one. Okay, so every time that the user hits the remove numbers button, we're just going to remove the last one until everything goes back to 0, right? And then we're just going to pass the update back into the front end. So we're sending the update back to use state, and that's how we update this variable. Okay, beautiful. Now the parent is basically going to get the number output, the DOM element. So we're going to have an ID that we're going to be able to pass the information to the front end so the user can see that the number was removed, okay? And we are basically removing the child. That's the moment when we remove that number from the front end. And we are decreasing the digit counter. Beautiful, huh? Awesome. Okay, and now we are effectively buying the tickets. So now what we're going to do, I want to show you. We're going to be buying the tickets, and basically it's an async function. If digit count equals 6, that means that the user selected the 6 numbers. If the digit count is less than 6, we're not going to let the user select the numbers. That explains why I did this. Because basically we want this to be updated, and we want to make sure that the user actually selected the 6 numbers. Else, we're not going to let the user buy the ticket. Okay. And now we're just going to say number array, string array, and we are going to be passing the amount of numbers. So basically this is a for loop that it's going to basically run 6 times. And I'm going to be passing number array, right? And I'm going to be creating and storing every single number here. And now, why am I doing this? The reason why I'm doing this is because we are going to be sorting in order the numbers, because we don't want the blockchain to take care of that. We want us to handle that off chain and just send the values already in order, saving gas fee. This is why we're doing this. Now we are passing number array, and we are sending this to the sort array bubble sort function that we coded in the interfaces file. There you go. We are passing that number right here. The moment I do that, I am putting the numbers in order. Okay. And now I am going to be doing the same thing, right? But in this time, we're just going to grab the new value that we already sorted in order. And you might say, why you had to, store this as a number and then as a string? The reason why is I cannot sort strings. I can sort numbers, but then I have to grab those numbers and convert those to string. So now I have to do the same for loop, but in this case, I am going to be converting those numbers to string. And now I can effectively send the string array to the smart contract, buy me that ticket. Okay, that's how we do it. If the transaction, again, remember we handled this like on the other calls that I explained to you, the claim. If this has data or this has been fulfilled, then we provide the message to the user saying that the transaction was successful, and we're refreshing. And what we're going to do, we're going to await 4 seconds after displaying this, and then we just reload the browser page, and then the user should be back in the main page. Okay. And then else, if something happened, we'll just transaction cancel. We'll just see that in the console logs. Okay. Beautiful. we are going to be getting all the winning numbers. Basically, what this is going to let me do is allows me to pass this value to the use state, and the use state is going to display that in the front end. That's what we're doing. We're grabbing all the information from the blockchain, and we're going to be rendering all that on the screen. And again, I am going to leave all the files, everything, so that you can see the entire reference, right? And we're going to do, once we paste everything, I am going to like search for this. I'm going to show you that this is literally here and this is there and whatnot. So you're going to see this. So don't worry. Okay. Beautiful. So now, okay. So now get Lotto data. From here, we are going to obtain what? The jackpot. So we are going to be able to obtain the Lotto ID, the current draw ID, right? This is the live game ID, and the jackpot, so then we can display the jackpot pool in the front end, okay? And we are going to do a function, right? The function is going to basically claim, allows the user to claim if they won a particular jackpot in a particular draw. What I'm passing is the Lotto ID, and you are going to see how am I going to reference this in the front end, because we have to iterate over every single draw that we want to display, and we want to show the numbers. Okay, so you're going to see every single winning number for every single draw, and we have to append the draw, the claim button to each one. I'm going to show you right away. Okay, so what this is doing is I am passing this. Remember, we coded that claim function right here. Where is it? Actually, Web3 function, sorry. So we coded the claimPrize function right here in the Web3 functions, and we're passing the Lotto ID, okay? And this is what we're passing in the front end, so I'm going to show you. We have a section that allows the user, that will be the top claim button, that is for the last draw. And every other draw will be below that one. And we are just going to have a map. A map allows me to render multiple arrays, right? And the same HTML code. So I am going to be showing you how we are going to be displaying every single draw. And then we will have the map. And you are going to see that I'm going to be attaching this claim button to that map. So every time that we have a render, we're going to be displaying that button on the left. And you are going to see that now, okay? And finally, we have the getDrawNumbers. So this is going to get every single number, right? So every single draw, we are going to be calling the blockchain, and we are going to be obtaining the numbers, and we are going to be able to display those numbers in the front end, okay? Now I have to paste all the HTML code, and off we go, okay? By the way, we're just, doing a very simple call. We're just getting current Lotto ID. We will subtract that -1. Remember, -1 is the last draw ID, not the current. We are obtaining the current Lotto ID, but we want to subtract -1, and that will give us the last Lotto ID. And then from there, we are going to obtain the winning numbers for that draw ID. So that will be on a separate section in the front end. So the first results, or the first winning numbers that we're going to be displaying, is going to be the last draw ID. And then we will separate the rest, right, in the map. So everything before the last draw is going to be displayed in the map that we are going to be adding here. So I'm going to paste the entire HTML code, and I'm going to show you some references, but I am strongly recommending you to go and practice and look on this entire code, and you are going to be able to associate the use state to the HTML code. So every single association, now that I paste once I paste the HTML code, you're going to see everything associated here, okay? So now we're just gonna grab this whole thing. This is a long config because this includes the model, includes everything, okay? Boom, okay. So this entire thing right here, it's going to call the ball CSS. It's going to render that ball object. And again, if I go just to explain the HTML code that I had to do, it's just going to take forever, right? And in my idea, it's more towards the blockchain and how we are going to be referencing the smart contracts to functionalities in JavaScript, in Next.js or React.js. If I go deep into CSS, it's just going to be another video, like for sure. Okay, I want to make sure that I make it very short. If you are interested, that I do like a crash course on CSS and all that, more than happy to. So let me know in the comments, and I will go ahead and do so. Okay, but it's just that it's going to take a long time. Okay, so you can see here win1, win2, and this is all wrapped in divs and for each section. And this is the value that I'm going to be rendering, which is basically a ball. Inside the ball, we're going to display the number. That's what we're doing, okay? And you can see remove digits. Remember when we coded that function to remove the digits from the model? That's basically associated here. We have this is the button that allows the model to be closed. And basically, those are all my numbers. Okay, so this is the model, and that's every single number. And let's just take a look at one of those numbers. Let's say, for example, button number 1. So if the player selects button 1, it's going to pass this as the value, right, to E. Okay, what is going to be E? Is going to be passed to add digits. What's the function for add digits? Let's go up. Add digits. E is the value, right? And that's how we are going to be able to store E inside this array, which is updating. You can continue updating this array, okay? Beautiful. And yeah, and then the claim is going to be attached. Let me show you how the claim is attached. So the claim, let me show you back down. I am going to, this is the buy tickets. You can see, and by the way, we should have everything enabled, right? So if we go here, and there you go, everything is already enabled. So if we go back down, let me show you the map. Okay, here we go. So draw number map, right? So what's going to happen? It's every array that we obtain values, we're going to be appending the information for that array. And the reason why we are doing this is because we are going to be calling. Let me show you. Here we go. We are going to be calling getWinningNumbers. Okay. getWinningNumbers, it's going to obtain the last draw ID and the first draw ID. What is that range? It's going to be the range of draws that I'm going to allow to display in the front end. Okay, so let's say I want to display the last 6 draws. So let's say the draw is lasting 24 hours. I want to display the last 6 draws. That means that I have to make sure that I get the last draw ID and I get the first draw ID. And how do I determine the last 6 numbers? I'm just going to subtract last draw ID minus 6. And that gives me the entire range, okay? Because now I have the starting and ending points. Because I have 6 total draws that I want to display, that I'm going to do a for loop for each one. And what I'm going to do, I am going to be able to push data array. I'm going to be passing data because I am going to be calling that draw ID getWinnerNumbers. Get me those winner numbers for that draw ID. Okay, and then we're going to be pushing that into the array. Once we're done with that, we are going to be reversing. So then the draws are displayed, last draw all the way to the first draw. We're not going to be displaying in the opposite direction because the users will like to get to the last draw first and then go all the way to the bottom if they are going to go to an older draw. Okay, and we're just going to pass a view draw number, and we're going to pass the array with the numbers. Okay, if we go back up here, view draw numbers. Okay, so draw num. If we go down, the map is going to have that reference. Okay, and there we go. Draw number map. Okay, got it. And by the way, everything, I have a couple of videos that I go more in detail in the map and how can you build the map. Again, I focus strictly in the functionality in the lottery app. Okay, I want to make sure that we get the idea and the concept. And it was a very long tutorial for sure. I'm going to Control S. Okay, and now let's see if we have a render. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, now let me refresh once again, and you can see draw 39. It's the live draw. That is the draw that is currently active, and it's going to end in 1 minute and 33, 32, whatever. This is the the previous draw, which is 38, and you can see here that I have that as the last draw numbers, which means that, hey, this is the most recent draw results or the winning numbers, right? And then if someone wants to check everything before that, we're gonna let the users see numbers before all the way to like 6 values. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one is 6. So we are going to provide up to 6 draws so the user has the functionality to claim, okay? And you can see that every single draw, we have the numbers. Those numbers are generated from the chaining VRF. We're doing the entire integration in the smart contract. We are, grabbing everything. This was an amazing, amazing project, okay? Beautiful. So last thing we are going to be testing before this runs out. I'm going to play. Let's select the numbers. 4, let's select 6, 9, do 10, and we are going to buy. We should get the prompt. Beautiful. We're going to use the default spending. So it tells me, hey, do you want to spend 10? Because the price is going to be 10. That's what we set in the smart contract. We're going to say yes. We're going to approve. Let's see. Let's cross finger and see if the draw didn't end. It got confirmed. So we should get transaction successful, refreshing, and we should now see the front end back. And off we go. Awesome. Okay, so that means that it was able, and you can see that the counter started. That means that the new draw started, and we set this for 5 minutes. Okay, so that's why we set it up for 5 minutes. I have to make sure that I can claim something here. No winning tickets found. Okay, and how do I do that? I have the alert, remember, in the interfaces. I'll show you right now. The claim button, when we go to the claim button, we are going to be displaying alert. So when you invoke this, it's going to show the pop-up in the browser showing, hey, no winning tickets found. That means that when I claim for that lotto draw, I am not going to obtain any prize, and I'm going to say, sorry, no winning tickets found. That means that I don't have a winning ticket. My wallet has no reference to a winning ticket, okay? So if we go back here, same thing, not allow, and there you go. That's it. We are done. Mission accomplished. We did it. You and I, we stay there until the finish line, and we have finalized this amazing tutorial. Alrighty? But as you know me, if this is your first time watching one of my tutorials, hit the thumbs up and subscribe, because this is not the only one. I have a lot of good tutorials coming up, and we are going to be coding a lot of DeFi applications, decentralized finance, and blockchain. Okay? Stick around. It's going to be a fun ride, and we're not stopping because we haven't finished. This is just the start. So I want to thank you for all your support, all your messages, all the comments, and please, if you have liked this tutorial, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to, and we'll see you on the next tutorial. Bye.